ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track. And ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
Well, I am very excited because I am joined in studio by a gentleman that has appeared as an actor in some of my favorite movies. But more so than being an actor, he was part of a profession for a couple of decades that I hold in the highest regard. And he did it at a time when it was a very different atmosphere, especially on the streets of New York, than it is right now. Sometimes you hear people complaining about how bad the city of New York is in terms of crime, and I understand what they're saying, and I get it. It was nothing like what our next guest saw. It was the Wild West back then. I am very, very pleased to welcome former NYPD cop turned actor, best known for playing cops in some of the most iconic movies in Hollywood history, the one and only Joe Cirillo. Joe, it's great to meet you in person. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. I got to say this, believe me. You are my girlfriend, Mary Genova. She thinks you're the greatest.
Oh, wow.
And she's excited like you are that I'm here today.
Well, wonderful.
And I'm almost sure she's probably listening right now.
Outstanding. Well, I hope I don't put any sort of a wedge in between your relationship.
No.
That's great.
She's happy that I'm here,
well,
believe me.
I'm happy that she's listening. Hey, before we get to what you've done in the movies, which I think obviously most people probably know you from, what made you want to be a cop initially?
Initially, I didn't want to be a cop. I worked in the post office, and a lot of my friends were taking the test, and they said to me, Joe, we're taking the cops test. Why don't you take it? I said, nah, I'm not interested. They said, I said, all right, I'll take it. I was the only one that passed, and I became a cop.
Well, for a profession that you didn't necessarily naturally gravitate to, it took you a couple of decades to figure out you didn't like it, right?
I spent 20 years with the NYPD. It was great.
And you were at the 2-0 precinct?
Correct, on the Upper West Side. I was there in 1957.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
You don't look like you're old enough to have been a cop in 1957.
I get that all the time. Nobody believes my age.
I saw your age online. I'm not sure I believe it. We're going to have Matt Blaze check your ID before you leave. So you're on the Upper West Side in the 50s and the 60s. Did you serve into the 70s as well?
Yes, I actually retired in 77.
Gotcha. Okay, so you saw some stuff.
Yes.
A changing New York from the time you started to the time you left.
Definitely.
How did you make the transition, and I love this story, and I've heard you tell it elsewhere, from policing to the world of acting?
Oh, okay. I was assigned, after a while, I was assigned to the Museum of Natural History. And across the street, the Beersford Apartments, a lot of movie stars, actors, directors lived there. And I befriended Mike Nichols.
Wow.
Yeah. And one day he asked me if, he said, how would you like to be in the movies? I said, I'm not an actor. He says, don't worry, we'll make you one. And what he did was set up an interview for me with Paramount Pictures. I went there, and I spoke to the casting director. Her name was Eastman. I don't remember her first name. But anyway, she said to me, what makes you think you can act? I says, hey, I'm a cop. We're the best actors in the world. We're doctors. We're lawyers. She said, you're right. And they gave me the small role in The Godfather.
Yeah, this obscure film. I'm not sure whatever happened with that, The Godfather. At 30 minutes after the hour, this is The Other Side of Midnight. My guest is Joe Cirillo. So Godfather came out in 72. You retired in 77. So there was at least 5 years where you were in both acting and policing simultaneously.
Yes, exactly.
What was that like?
Well, it was good. I mean, I kept busy as a cop, of course. And, of course, whenever a role came up, I would take it. So I sort of worked it in so that whenever I got time to do a movie, I did a movie. But police work at the time was my prime job.
I think a lot of folks recognize many of the actors in The Godfather: Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, Robert Duvall, James Caan. You go down the list. You don't necessarily immediately come to mind when people think of the actors that were in The Godfather. Who did you play in The Godfather? Tell folks what scene or scenes it was.
Okay, that's a good question. I was given a small role, and when the movie came out, it was not in the movie. So I went to Paramount Pictures and I said, "What happened? My role's not in the movie." They said, "Joe, they shot about 6 hours. So if the movie was to come out with all the shots they took, it'd be about a 6-hour movie." They had dropped different scenes. Mine was dropped, but I was in other scenes, but not with dialogue. Now, in 1973, I believe it was, I got a residual check. And I'm not in the movie, with the speaking part, and I've been getting checks almost every month since 1973.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah,
hey?
yeah.
No wonder you were hooked on acting.
That was hitting a home run, definitely.
Tell me, though, about your experience at The Godfather. I mentioned a lot of these legendary actors, many of whom have passed on, not Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, Robert Duvall, obviously, but a lot of the others have. Did you get a chance to interact much with any of those guys?
I did speak with Marlon Brando and Pacino. Pacino just so happened was dating my sister-in-law's girlfriend.
You kidding?
So that's wow. That's the truth. And so I walked up to him and I said, "Do you know Eileen?" and so on, and we had a big conversation. And then another time, I had a big conversation with Marlon Brando. If for some reason he came over, we start talking, and that was a great thing. Yes.
And did everybody know that you were actually a cop in real life? Well, yeah.
I don't think so. I don't believe so at that time. No.
What you were a cop in the film, though, right?
No. I was in the wedding party.
Oh, in the wedding party.
Yeah, the wedding scene. The big wedding scene. And I was with, what's his name now, who passed away? Oh, most of them passed away.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, I was with one of the mob bosses.
Was it Abe Vigoda? Or
Abe Vigoda,
yeah.
Correct. I'm sorry. Yes, Abe.
Well,
and that's the photo they gave me of my scene is me with Abe Vigoda.
That's pretty cool. And he seems like a real character. Speaking of characters, I don't know that there are many characters in the history of 20th century entertainment that came across as more larger than life in stature and in terms of on-screen charisma than Tully Savalas. Obviously, so many people know Tully Savalas from his work on Kojak. You got to work on Kojak as a technical consultant?
I did a lot. How that came about. In 1976, the producers of Kojak decided to come to New York. Prior to that, they were filming in California. And they said, let's go to New York. We're going to spend a year in New York filming. So Tully at that time was the most popular actor. The show was probably number one in the world. Mm-hmm. So the producers went to police headquarters. They spoke with the commissioner, and they said, we need someone, a cop, that could be Tully Savalas' bodyguard and have knowledge about film. And they said, we got the right guy for you. And they assigned me.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
If you're just tuning in, I'm Frank Morano. This is The Other Side of Midnight. My guest is Joe Cirillo. What was Tully Savalas like?
Oh, Tully was the greatest. Tully was a great guy. He was very kind, really took care of me. He took care of my family. He took care of his family. He had 3 wives. He actually had them all together. Everyone loved Tully.
Well, he didn't have all 3 wives simultaneously.
No, actually he did.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know he was a big one.
Oh, no. Yeah. I remember being at one, I think it was Thanksgiving, and he had all 3 wives and the children.
Oh, my goodness.
And his mother. And I was there all together.
Forget about the acting. That's the most impressive thing I've ever heard anybody do.
Everyone.
His daughter, who's a singer, has been a guest on this show.
Ariana, yes.
She's terrific. She was really
I know
great.
Ariana, yes. That's the last wife.
The 1984, at this point you're retired from the NYPD, and you get a pretty impressive role in one of the most famous films, who knew it at the time, but one of the most famous films of all time, a film that has endured for 4 decades since then, a little film called Ghostbusters in a pretty pivotal scene. If folks don't remember the scene, this is Joe Cirillo as a police officer in Ghostbusters.
Shut it off. I'm warning you.
I've never seen anything like this before. I don't know.
I'm not interested in your opinion. Just shut it off. My friend, don't be a jerk.
Step aside.
If he does that again, you can shoot him.
You do your job, pencil neck. Don't tell me how to do mine.
Thank you, officer.
You do your job, pencil neck. Don't tell me how to do mine. How did Ghostbusters come to be and your involvement in Ghostbusters?
Well, actually, that was filmed in California, most of it. And they were doing the New York sequence. And the casting director just called me and said, Joe, I got a role for you. I didn't have to read for it because I was in 2 series and so on. And I thought it was going to be, just almost an extra role. But it ended up that we spent a couple of days in New York doing the exteriors. And then they flew me to California for the interiors for about a week. So it turned out to be quite a role. And for some reason, my scene is known all over the world. It's crazy.
So in that scene, you're interacting with Bill Murray. Harold Ramis is right there. Rick Moranis is right there. What was it like interacting with these guys, many of whom are comedy legends?
Oh, it was great. When you're working with actors, especially them, you become family. We're buddies. We had a great time. It was really wonderful working with them.
Shopping is hard.
I can never find anything in my size.
I don't even know my size.
I buy my clothes the same place I buy my groceries.
There's a better way. Make it easy with Stitch Fix. Just share your size, style, budget, and done. Your personal stylist sends pieces picked just for you.
That was easy.
Stitch Fix. Online personal styling for everyone. Free shipping and returns. No subscription required. Get started today at stitchfix.com.
Ladies, you'll end up shopping for your guy's deodorant, right? So try Degree's Original Cool Rush. You see, last year, Degree changed the formula, and men were mad. One guy even started a petition. So Degree admitted they messed up and brought the Original Cool Rush scent back. It's clean, crisp, and actually smells like someone you want to cuddle. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So toss one in your cart and find out why it's the best-selling men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory.
Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel or that white chocolate mocha. Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
Clorox Sentiva smells like grapefruit. Cleans like Clorox. And feels like
Okay, we could be here all day. Try Clorox Sentiva for a trusted clean with long-lasting freshness. Also available in lavender and coconut. Use as directed.
I've always heard that Bill Murray has kind of a quirky, offbeat sense of humor. Did you see any of that?
Oh, did I see it? Okay. One day, my wife was there with me. And one day she came to me and she says, honey, Bill Murray's trying to pick me up. I said, what? So I grabbed her by the hand. I said, come with me. And I walked over to Bill and I said to him, Bill, I want you to meet my wife. He looked at me and he looked at her. He says, oh, that's your wife? And so then my wife said, can you please give me an autograph? And he said, all right, give me your address and I'll send you a photo. He sent the photo. And what he wrote on it, it's incredible. In fact, I've been offered $750 for that photo.
Wow. Well,
yes.
Can you repeat what he wrote on it?
Yeah. He said, Norma, your big fat can is getting in the way of everyone else. Yeah.
That's outstanding. That's outstanding.
And I've been offered, forget about it. The people want that photo from me.
I can imagine. So when you use this term, when...
My friend, don't be a jerk.
Step aside.
If he does that again, you can shoot him.
You do your job, pencil neck. Don't tell me how to do mine.
When you use that term, pencil neck, I love that. It reminds me of classy Freddie Blassie in his heyday. Is that in the script or is that ad-libbed by you?
No, that was in the script. That was my line. So I didn't even know what a pencil neck was.
Gotcha. I love that. Hey, that's great.
Yes.
How many times have you played a police officer?
Oh, quite. Doing extra work and everything else. I believe around 100 times. Yeah, wow. I've been in a lot of movies. Either I'm a hood, or I'm a cop, or different roles, depending on When I audition, I read for different roles. So whatever comes up, if I selected to do the role, I'm happy with it.
Some actors complain about being typecast. Something tells me that's not a concern for you.
No, it's not, because like I said, yeah, I got a lot of cop roles, and of course hood roles, being a hood and so on. But no, I never had a problem with that. I think I can handle any role.
You've told an interesting story before, and I think it's in your book, about a late-night phone call with Frank Sinatra. Tell folks about that.
Oh, okay. Do you really want me to say?
Yeah.
Okay. Because we're going into my security company.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I had a security company which I started after I stopped acting. And
by the way, what made you stop acting?
I can give you that story.
Yeah. Sorry,
that's okay.
All these different directions.
I was co-starring from the Kojak series. They decided to do another show, and they another series, and it was called I Shied with Joe Don Baker as the lead, and I helped them put it all together. And I had a co-starring role with Joe Don Baker. So what happened was my wife was back in New York. I'm out in California with the Kojak series and now with the I Shy series. So, and she hated California. So she's growing up the kids and I'm in California. So now when the show was ending, Joe Don Baker decided he didn't want to work anymore because it was 15 hours a day. So they were canceling the show. I called my wife and I said, honey, I'm coming home. They're canceling the show. She said, thank God. Now, in that 2-week period where we're doing the last show, the head of casting, I think from Universal or one of them, came on the set and he said, I want to see Joe Cirillo. I said, I'm here. He said, I've got 2 pilots for you. And Joe Don Baker and the other actors said, Joe, this is your big break. And I says, I'm going home. I told my wife I'm going home. They said, what are you, nuts? This is your big break. I said, well, let me call my wife. So I got on the phone. I called and I says, honey, they want me for 2 pilots. I'm not coming home. Dead silence, and you come home or else. Click. And I gave it up.
Gotcha.
I came back to New York, and I started my security company.
So you're doing the security thing. You get the call from Frank Sinatra. What does he want?
Well, I didn't get a call from him. I got a call from my security guard that was with him at the hotel. Whenever Mr. Sinatra came into New York, he stayed at the Waldorf, 35th floor, I believe it was. And I always had a cop, a retired cop, off-duty cop, or whatever, at a desk which was set up outside his room. And I get a call at 2:00 in the morning, and the security guy says to me, Joe, you're not going to believe what happened. And I said, what happened? He says, Mr. Sinatra came out of the room. This is like 2:00 in the morning. Mr. Sinatra came out of the room totally naked, and he walked over to the elevators. And I said, what'd you do? He says he was incoherent. He said, I put my jacket around him and I brought him back to the bed. So he said, well, did anybody see this? He says, no, nobody was there. I said, well, tell the supervisor when he gets in exactly what happens, but don't tell anybody else. And so then he said, Joe, you're not going to believe this. He said he had a beer can hanging there, referring to his manhood. And I put that in the book because Ava Gardner said the same thing. But that was that. I actually opened my book with that as my preface.
So you have interacted with a ton of interesting people. We've already covered Marlon Brando, Bill Murray, and Frank Sinatra. You also knew Eddie Egan and Sonny Grasso.
Oh, yes.
The real-life detectives behind the French Connection. What was it like knowing them, and how did they influence your work or your life to the extent that they did?
You know, back in 1971, there were about maybe 15 of us that became actors, including the two you just mentioned. And we worked together. Sonny went on to become a big producer himself. But I worked with Eddie Egan, and we both worked in the Eyeshide series. And he, one time he almost got me fired. Yeah. We were friends, but what happened was they had a certain scene where I was I was the technical advisor. He was for the detectives. I was for the police officers. And what happened, the actor, Cesare Donova, that's his name, he gets shot, falls on an escalator, and as he's going up the escalator, the officer that shoots him runs up to the top, and he's got a gun on him waiting. So that particular actor asked me, how would I respond to that? And I gave him different scenarios. I said, I probably would have been nervous shaking my gun. He said, Eddie Egan probably would have kicked him, say, get the hell out of here, whatever. And so they shot it. The director liked it and shot it. And we're on the set one day, and all of a sudden the producer comes in. He says, I want to see the director and Joe Cirillo. And he said to me that Eddie Egan said that would never happen. And he says, that's not a scene. The cops would never do that. But believe me, I was right because I saw it happen. Anyway, the producer then said, well, he says, you're no longer the technical advisor, and your job is in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you and Eddie patch things up after that?
Later, but what happened when I went back on the set and we were shooting, and Joe Don Baker came over and he says, what's the matter, Joe? And I told him everything that happened. He says, what? He went into the producer's office and he said, if Joe Cirillo is off the show, I'm off the show. And they reinstated me right there.
You never see that, or you never hear about that. That's great.
That's a true story, yes.
In terms of policing, we alluded to the fact that you were a police officer in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Policing back then was vastly different than it is today. How do you think the job has changed over the years?
Well, of course, we've got all these new modern things. We had nothing. We had a nightstick, a billy club, no radio, no vests. Today, they have all that. It's more modernized. They have everything, the cars. But I think today I wouldn't want to be a cop.
Really?
Yeah. I love the police department, but I think it's very difficult for them to put up with the general public. Not the general public, certain publics. A cop today is really risking his life. You see it. We just had another cop shot yesterday.
Yeah.
So, big difference from when I was a cop. I honestly think we were more respected back in the 50s and 60s.
In your book, you mention also being a combat veteran.
Yes.
How did your time in the Korean War influence your approach to your career after that, and your life, for that matter?
Well, I survived it.
It's a good start.
A damn good start. Yeah, I spent over a year there, and what at the time when I went there, I wasn't there 4 days, and they sent me right up to the front line to relieve the Turks. and that's where I got my combat infantry badge. That's where I earned it. And then they'd pull you off the line, and you'd stay in the rear for a short time. Then you'd go back on the line to relieve more soldiers. And this went back and forth. You had to have a total of 36 points to rotate back home. When you were on the front line, it was 4 points. And when you're in the slightly to the rear, 3 points, and further back was 2 points. So depending where you were at and how many points you got, that's how long it took you to get home. I think it took me just a little over a year. But I was back and forth on the front line. And like I said, I survived it. I wasn't wounded, thank God. Of course, I saw buddies get killed. I went out in combat patrols, yeah. And in life, when I got back in the police department, I found it easier to be a cop because of my experience in Korea. Yes.
Really? There are, because we're on late at night, all over the country, there are a lot of police officers and other law enforcement officers working odd hours who are listening to us right now, and some of them may aspire to do what you've done, make the transition to acting, working on movies as a consultant, maybe even write a book. What advice would you give to someone looking to pursue a multifaceted career like the one you've had?
Go for it. That's what I say. Go for it. I took the shot, and it worked for me. And cop today, they're pretty smart people. I think today, not when I was on the job, I think you have to have a college education in order to be a cop today. When I was a cop, it was high school and maybe a little college. But they're pretty smart cops out there. And I feel that they can do the same thing I did if they wanted to do it. Yeah.
So you've witnessed both the gritty realities of New York City and the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. Is there anything that connects those two seemingly different worlds?
Connect them? That's a good question.
Two totally different worlds.
Yeah, totally different.
Now, I am looking at video and photo of you over the years. You look, people, you mentioned starting as a police officer in 1956. I think even 57, even if you started when you were 10 years old, people know that you're certainly a seasoned citizen, but you look great. You've aged really well. What's the secret? Are you taking some sort of secret vitamin? What are you doing?
It's pasta, olive oil, and water.
Then I'm in good shape if that's the case.
I know you're Italian,
it's
so
true. No,
yeah,
those are three of my four food groups. Joe Cirillo, this has been a real treat. Love to your girlfriend, and I hope to have you back in studio sometime soon.
I'd love to come back.
I know it's a hike making the trip at this time of night. I really appreciate you coming in.
Thank you so much.
If you want to comment on any portion of our conversation, you're welcome to give me a call. Our phone number is 646-720-0635. That's 1-646-720-0635. This is The Other Side of Midnight. Straight ahead.